A female voice begs to be let go as a green-haired girl holds another in her arms. She then questions our hero, asking why he's doing this to them. Meanwhile, our main character, Tae, just stands there silently, a dark aura swirling around him. Because according to the girl, it was his fault that the other girl in her arms chose to stop breathing. She tells him to shut up and not say another word because it's all over now. Tae then asks her right back, saying she should already know the reason why. The girl desperately denies it, claiming they did absolutely nothing wrong. In a flashback, Tae wonders if anything would have changed if he had just listened to her before. Right after, a massive red dragon appears, roaring amidst the flames of chaos. The girl continues, explaining that he's to blame for them being tracked, and for the other one ending her own life. The truth is, our hero couldn't stop the apocalypse, even after fighting against the dragons, and so begins the sixth cycle, where once again, he has failed his mission. Back to the present, the girl screams at our MC, asking if he's finally satisfied. But he just gets closer and tells her this was all something they brought upon themselves. And in the end, all that remained were the apocalyptic dragons that destroyed the world once more. During the battle, our hero uses his SAS rank ability called Invisible Blade. With a determined look, Tae braces himself for combat amidst the flames. He then looks over the destroyed city, while holding his energy weapon. Even though he looks tired, our MC shows no signs of weakness. A giant dragon appears and launches a fireball straight at him. But our boy doesn't even flinch, and charges straight at the creature without a second thought. And with his blade, he gets ready to slice through the attack coming his way. After all, what Tae has learned is that failure, and the experience that comes with it, is everything. With that in mind, he continues his charge and attacks the enormous red dragon, and, just like that, he manages to finish off the creature that was blocking his path. Even in the middle of all the explosions, our hero states that he regrets nothing. Then, several of his energy slashes fly towards the enemies. A golden aura with clock gears appears around him. But even after taking down the dragons, they just keep coming, and he fails to save the Earth. However, his orbit clock ability rewinds the world's time once again. With his eyes slowly opening, our boy returns to the past one more time, and as soon as he's back, a notification pops up, saying that the world's time is restarting. This time, he goes back to a moment where a boy is pointing at something strange in the sky. And that something was a portal that gave a girl a really bad feeling about what was about to happen. A moment later, she and the people around her are in shock at what they see coming out of it. In the panic, the woman ends up dropping her phone, and the screen shatters on the ground. That's how the portals opened all over the world, and with them came knights in armor. On top of that, all sorts of strange creatures also started pouring out of these purple portals, and along with them, bizarre and terrifying monsters emerged to terrorize everyone. It seemed like humanity's flame was about to be extinguished forever in the face of that threat. Still, people didn't understand what was happening, and thought about calling the police. But maybe this whole experience wasn't completely useless for our main character. One guy even gives a thumbs up and asks someone to take his picture before the monsters disappear. And that's how, in the 21st century, humanity was attacked by these mysterious creatures. However, this marked the beginning of a new era where humanity found a new flame to fight with. And among them were young hunters with an exceptional potential for combat. That's why they were gathered in Lair, a global academy city, to train. As soon as he returns, our hero sees a man named Johosik threatening a hostage. The guards surround him and tell him to surrender, but the guy refuses to listen. So, the villain decides that if he's going down, he's taking everyone with him. But then, Tae appears behind him and in a cold voice, tells the man to give it up. Johosik is in total shock because he never sensed our boy's presence, and he wonders how in the world our MC managed to get behind him. In a desperate move, the villain tries to use the hostage, but is stopped by Tae. He then turns to attack our hero, screaming at him to go to hell. But our MC states that he's not just some ordinary guard, and right after, he says, "I am the police," and lands a solid punch right on the guy. The hit is so powerful that it sends him flying, making him crash hard onto the ground. After taking him down, Tae comments that he might have lost control of his strength. And finally, he introduces himself as an officer from the Lair Regional Police Department. Our MC explains that the villain was just lying there when he arrived. A coworker then asks him to write a report, but gives up halfway through. After all, she notices that Senior G. Tae seems a little different than she remembered. Meanwhile, it's explained that Jo Hosuk was a former superhuman who became a criminal. But for our boy, the question is why the villain is here again in this timeline. Because in his memory, the man had taken a hostage and started a huge riot, not really caring. Yoo Jae T drags the criminal away and says he'll take care of everything. His coworker then notices that he seems taller, and maybe even a little more handsome. But to our hero, all the faces around him look completely unfamiliar. Right after, another officer approaches and asks if that's the infamous Jo Hosuk. And since this is his first day back at work since his return, everything feels new to him. The reason for all this is that dragon hatchlings come to Earth to gain experience. That's why he gave up a normal life, to stop the apocalypse and save the young dragons. Because in another life, one couldn't handle the cruelty, and the other failed her mission. On top of that, some lose control during their journey and go berserk from all the fighting. And so, in this new cycle, our hero plans to try a different approach to everything. But his coworker calls out to him, asking what he's doing after work today. This makes our boy remember an important moment from his past, where a green-haired girl was happily playing with some children in a garden. One of them smiles brightly as she receives a gentle pat on the head. He also remembers watching the girl from a distance as she said goodbye to the little ones. With a thoughtful look, the young woman seemed to be reflecting on something important to her, and her beauty and innocence were clear to anyone who saw her in that moment. Her happiness was contagious, as she had fun with the children around her. But in the present, he turns down the dinner invitation, because he already has somewhere to be, and that place was a meeting with the green-haired girl he was watching before. His coworker then asks him where he's going, and the answer is Europe. After all, even though he got stronger, he wasn't enough to protect the world on his own, and because of that, the enraged adult dragons attacked humanity, seeking revenge. Finally, he arrives at his destination, the beautiful city of Florence, Italy. Our MC thinks that he's finally figured out something important for his plan. He then tells the green-haired girl, "You're coming with me from now on." She asks him if he knows who she is, and our boy says yes. He also asks if she already knew who he was, and the girl confirms his suspicion. The girl calls him by his name, which leaves Yoo Tae surprised by the revelation, because she points to his chest and says his name was written right there. A moment later, she laughs and says she was just kidding, as she knows nothing about him. Our hero stays silent for a moment, trying to process the situation. Then the girl asks if he came to kidnap her, and he says that's about right. She continues, wanting to know why he came to see her, and the guy says he's here on business. With a smirk, the girl asks if that's really it, in a very suspicious way, and she even asks if he came to end her life, but Yoo Tae immediately denies it. Still, she calls him by his name, and the two start walking together through the park. Thanks to his ability, he understands her language, and the girl greets him. She also comments that he's way too strong and doesn't belong in a place like this. With a serious expression, our boy continues to stare at the green-haired girl. She then turns to leave and says he needs to promise to treat her well. The girl also asks if he'll be nice to her if she behaves herself. He then surprises her, revealing that he already knows she's a green dragon too. The girl gets a little nervous and squeezes her own arm tightly upon hearing that. After their chat, he takes her to a safe apartment in the big city. Once they get there, the girl peeks through the door with a look of pure confusion. But Yoo Tae reassures her and makes a pinky promise that he'll take care of her. She then agrees, knowing she doesn't have much of a choice. And he confirms that's true. His intention is to protect her, but if she doesn't obey, he'll use force. The girl then teases him, asking if he has a thing for dragons, but he cuts her off. With a smile, she asks to be treated like a guest and flips him the bird. Our hero just stares at her and says he hopes she makes a wise decision. The next day, the girl shows up wearing one of his shirts and asks if he's awake. And it's revealed that the Green Clan can read Providence, which gives them better instincts. The green-haired girl sees a shadow coming out of Yoo Jae. Tan has no idea what's going on, but he explains that it's a clone that'll work in his place and greets her. Our hero then gets closer to the girl, who seems a bit shy about the situation. Even so, she says she feels bad for being the only one eating. So, she invites him to have breakfast, but he's confused by the offer, because according to our hero, dragons can survive without food for a long time. He then creates a shadow clone, and the being swears loyalty to its master. The girl laughs and says she needs to stay by his side, so the clone idea is perfect. With that, she gets excited and says they need to go shopping, but he refuses. But she insists, saying he skipped dinner and needs to eat something soon. The girl then asks if he's not going to work, and Tae explains his ability. It's called Shadow of the Grand Duke, which summons a clone with half of his strength. Right after, the clone appears, and the girl is impressed by how much they look alike. She then says she'll show him the power of a good breakfast. After all, for her, it's not just about surviving, it's about being happy and energized. Their first stop is a huge supermarket that delivers anywhere. The green-haired girl then turns around and confusedly asks why they're there. But what he really wants is to go to a place that makes rings and other special jewelry. After that, the two appear in front of the market to buy what they need. Inside, a little boy even thinks she's a celebrity because she's so beautiful. She then gets excited to cook, but he tells her to leave the groceries at home because they're eating out. On top of that, our MC rushes her because they still have a lot to do. Because according to Tae, they need to stop by one more place before heading home. The girl apologizes, saying she got too excited since it's been a while since she went shopping. And he explains that they went to get the things she'd need to live with him. Next, they go to a woman who hands a document to our girl. She thinks they bought too much, but he says the kitchen had nothing to cook with. Then they go to an old man who makes an ID for her while our hero threatens him. The old guy with a weird eye compliments her beauty and asks if she's the boss's girlfriend. Finally, the girl walks out, all happy and humming, next to Tae. With a thoughtful look, our hero starts to explain his plan to the girl. She then takes her new ID and is amazed to have one just for herself. He explains that since there are 4 dragons, their names will come from the 4 seasons. After that, the girl appears, happily fiddling with a holographic computer. She then says she likes her new name, Bomb, and thanks him with a smile. And she asks if her last name comes from his, and why her name is Bomb, which means spring. Even so, she admits she's still a little scared of our main character, but that he doesn't seem like a bad person, and he asks how she knows that. Our hero then looks up at the sky, thoughtful about the girl's words, because she claims her intuition is the best of all. After all, she's a green dragon. He's then surprised that she didn't have an ID or even a bank account. And spring is the season when life returns to the world, which is why it's a beautiful name. Despite that, her instincts keep warning her that Tae is very dangerous. However, a smile from the green dragon is something he's never seen in the previous loops. She then asks for permission to observe him for a little longer, and he agrees to the idea. With his eyes closed, our hero thinks that this wasn't a bad start at all, and that everything is going according to plan for this new cycle that has just begun. Meanwhile, somewhere else, a man yells angrily at a red-haired girl, and she, who is stepping on him, apologizes because she accidentally stepped too hard. A news report reveals that the identity of the mysterious night fighter is a teenage girl. Back at the apartment, Tae looks up info on the girl and says it's time to make a move. But Bon calls him for dinner, and he says he's on his way to meet her. The red-haired girl then scoffs at the man and questions if he's really that strong, and this whole scene is happening somewhere in the deserts of the African continent. When he gets to the table, our hero is faced with a very strange-looking fish dish, and his shocked expression says it all about what he thinks of that purple food. The girl then steps harder on the man and confirms that he's not lifeless. The news also shows an armed conflict in South Africa with many casualties. The young woman then takes off her mask and, with a defiant smile, asks who's next, and she celebrates her 199 victories in 199 fights. Very proud, Bomb asks if the grub she made looks good, but our hero just stays silent with a nod, so friendly look on his face, staring at the food. He then says that if she helps him, they can solve everything peacefully, because the next day, the two of them are going after Red, and Bomb has no idea why. Meanwhile, the fish on her spoon looks like it's begging for its suffering to end. Our boy then explains that what they want is different, and that's why there's a distance between them, and she wonders if she'll be useful. But he thinks she can convince the other girl. After all, if they don't bring the red dragon in soon, things are going to get dangerous. Bomb finds it strange that he's suddenly asking her for help, 'cause She thought he was the type of guy who always did everything himself. The girl then explains that she saw a dish with sardines in England and mixed it with rice. But the serious talk returns, and he says there are people after Red to take her out, and the girl warns that bringing the other one in will be tough because she's not as obedient as she was. Since the Red clan loves a good fight, and for them, surrendering is worse than the end. Finally, she says she likes peace and quiet, but Red's clan is completely different. Our hero stays silent for a moment, thinking about the girl's proposal. But U-Bomb says she has one condition, and he asks what it would be. Meanwhile, in Africa, some elite soldiers are seen defeated on the ground. One of them says they can't handle her, and that he'd better get there soon. Another soldier complains that their unit was wiped out by a little girl. Back at dinner, our MC gets caught trying to stop eating. A soldier lying on the ground complains that even the strongest ones are too weak. U-Bomb then says she'll help, because she doesn't want Red to be gone either. Her condition is that he eats all the food she prepared with love. Some soldiers mention that Green is in Europe and consider going there. One of them then panics and yells for everyone to run for their lives. The red-haired girl complains that no one in Africa is a match for her. She then attacks the remaining soldiers with her sword and says it's too late. And just like that, the whole area is filled with the bodies of soldiers she defeated alone. She then notices the hidden soldiers and asks them what they're whispering about. The red-haired girl gets ready to block an attack coming her way. A moment later, a powerful golden energy hits her sword hard. And she complains that the guy's mana is way too heavy and gets really angry about it. Meanwhile, the mysterious warrior holds his sword with absurd strength, but the redhead doesn't back down and throws a red energy slash right at him. The soldiers are jaw-dropped because she managed to cut through the pure mana of the attack. Then, a knight in golden armor appears and asks if she's the knight fighter. And this is Javier Karma, an 8th rank superhuman who tells his men to fall back. He says the girl spooked him with her power, and seems a bit surprised by it. The redhead then admits that his attack was also pretty heavy and very strong. With a mocking little smile, she asks if he's the big boss of this whole place. She says he's younger than she thought and asks if he's got a crush on her. And she explains that she wears a mask because her gorgeous face distracts opponents in a fight. Javier doesn't get why. She won't surrender even though she can see he's stronger. But the girl replies that she's not running away just because one of her weapons broke. With a red aura, the girl says she'd rather not run away shamefully. She yells that she prefers to go down fighting and charges straight at Javier. And so begins an intense exchange of blows between the two powerful warriors. With her fist glowing red, she finds an opening in her opponent's defense. She then tries to land a low blow to turn the tables in her favor. However, Javier's reaction leaves her completely confused and puzzled. Her punch lands squarely, but he doesn't even flinch from the impact. He then says she's never fought anyone stronger and that it's all been a game. On top of that, Javier states that her talent is impressive, but there's a catch. Because he's not the type to play around in her little games. A moment later, he attacks with his golden sword, and the girl screams in surprise. And this is his powerful technique called the Sword of Ra, which shines brightly. The knight then activates his weapon's full power to end the fight for good. The redhead panics as she realizes she can't dodge that attack. Finally, a huge blast of golden light hits the girl hard, defeating her. With his eye glowing, Javier asks our hero who he really is, because the attack he blocked sent the red-haired girl flying. The knight then turns around, confused, not understanding what's happening. The redhead is also silent and can't believe what she just saw. Suddenly, U-Bomb appears and starts healing the girl, saying she's going to get hurt. She also says that if Red is gone, their fun ends too, because her departure isn't something that only affects herself, and she heals her with her magic. Red then asks if the old guy is our MC, and U-Bomb confirms it. Still, the redhead gets mad and tells U-Bomb to stay out of it because it's her fight. Javier is impressed because she blocked his attack and needs to ramp up the power. Our hero then warns that the knight isn't alone on that battlefield. Red is surprised to see Green and asks what she's doing there. With a smile, U-Bomb says she still wants to stay on Earth and asks for the others' cooperation. The redhead says the guy is too strong, but Green reassures her and talks about the hold guy. Javier then realizes the two of them ran off, and Red pulls her into a hiding spot. Javier warns them not to mess with him, and that the girl won't be showing her face around there anymore. In a flashback, a blonde girl says it's strange because she smells something green coming from him. Our hero just watches the whole situation with a very serious look on his face. In the present, Red asks if he's the guy Green was talking about earlier. However, Javier isn't intimidated and asks if he really thinks he's going to back down. Our MC then approaches and the knight questions the word Gordian. Another memory shows the same little blonde girl asking our boy who he was. The knight says the situation is complicated and that he can't explain everything right now. But Tae doesn't care and declares, loud and clear, that he is her guardian. He then asks the knight to just let it all go quietly and leave. But Javier refuses because the girl appeared out of nowhere and crossed every line. He also states that the area is under San's jurisdiction and prepares to fight. With his golden aura, he announces their arrest and activates his full power. In yet another flashback, the blonde girl asks if he's a bad person with a smile on her face. And with a shout, Javier charges at our MC with a powerful attack. A series of golden explosions then takes over the entire battlefield, and after the dust settles, Javier is seen standing with his sword shining intensely. He then says that, if he's the girl's guardian, that attack wouldn't have finished him. However, our hero appears behind him with a dark aura, and says this is frustrating. He also questions how someone ranked 8th can be so inflexible. Javier turns around, startled, and wonders since when our MC was there. He then prepares to attack again with his powerful sword of Rai in hand. But in the blink of an eye, the knight is completely caught off guard by our boy, because Tae is already behind him, holding him, and telling him to listen closely. And with a cold look, he warns that today is the unluckiest day of the knight's life, because the story now is that he ran into a monster while investigating the girl, and as a result, he couldn't fight back and lost his arms and eyes in the process. Our hero then threatens him with an energy blade, and Javier is terrified. And even though San can heal his wounds as long as he survives, the fear planted in his mind will stay with him forever as a bad memory. With a thoughtful look, our hero analyzes the situation and starts to form a plan. He then appears suddenly, leaving the two girls speechless at his presence. Red can't believe he's human, and Yu-Bomb tries to calm her friend down. Tae then says that from now on, she'll live with him under his protection. But he warns her with a terrifying look that if she steps out of line, things will change. Yu-Bomb tries to break the ice and says that Red looks bigger than before. The red-haired girl then gets scared and asks why he sounds so frightening. And even the violent little dragon was no exception to his rule, and got scared. Our MC then promises freedom and support for anything she wants to do. With his overcoat fluttering in the wind, he faces the two of them with determination. After all, fear is so effective that Tae has always used this method until now. Yu-Bomb then hugs her friend and says she seems really scared of him. A moment later, he gives the girl a new name. From now on, she's Urium. He then receives a report from his clone, saying the situation has been handled. And at that exact moment, in the Amazon rainforest, the little blonde girl is playing with a holographic tablet. Our hero ends the call and immediately announces his next target, the gold dragon. He's ready to continue his mission. Besides, he knows what to do. The narrative shifts to the gold dragon, whose vibrant personality and passion for the spotlight are highlighted. Just like a pop star, she definitely loves the attention. Back in the Amazon, the gold dragon questions Tae about the phone call he had, but the narrative quickly jumps back to the past for better context. A rose with thorns appears as a visual metaphor, revealing the dangers inherent in the gold dragon's fame and charm, but the thorns will be left out. Back in the present, she's fascinated by Tae's advanced technology, highlighting her current lifestyle and how it contrasts with her past fame. He asks her if she's afraid of people now, suggesting past traumatic experiences. But the gold dragon doesn't answer. The gold dragon realizes he has information about her, acquired through the green dragon, showing a connection between them. In fact, she's shocked. Confused, the gold dragon asks Tae what he's doing in a place like this, but he doesn't answer her question. She adorably offers to give him her smartwatch, indicating she thinks he's talking to himself. But Tae doesn't take it seriously, clearly identifying her as the gold dragon. The narrative shifts focus to another moment in the story. But she's also in touch with the present. A brief flashback reveals Tae's clone leaving with Yu-Bomb, emphasizing the strategic importance of the green dragon's intervention with Red. In the present, The gold dragon shows enthusiasm for the advanced hologram, comparing it to a model she already knew, but an older one with less technology. The narrative dives into a flashback that highlights the gold dragon's journey as a successful celebrity, with a special focus on her glamorous life, but with an unhappy ending. A dark image suggests the gold dragon's apocalyptic past, contrasting with her intense light and highlighting the duality of her existence. But now she's happy. Back in the Amazon, Tay reveals that she should be living among humans, not with beasts, shocking her, as she's been hiding but has been found out. With a snap of his fingers, our hero tries to get the blonde girl's attention. He then asks if she likes bread, but she says she doesn't need to eat since she's a dragon. The girl's eyes go wide with surprise at his sudden question, because our MC shows up with a bag full of various breads and pastries, and she's amazed by the delicious smell and asks if it's all for her. Our hero then says yes, and invites her to come with him, and not stay there anymore, and to convince the girl, he even promises to buy her macarons too. The blonde explains that it's not fear, but she's tried living among people before, and as she tells her story, she sits down next to Tay, looking very comfortable. He then says his friends are there, and that it'll be safe for her to go back. The girl is super happy with the donuts and blueberry pies he brought. However, she remembers her mom taught her not to follow strangers. With her mouth full of crumbs, the blonde doesn't know what to do in that situation. After all, she remembers people staring at her strangely and following her around. Suddenly, a giant shadow appears, and the girl gets struck by his ability. With his eye glowing, a mysterious knight watches everything from a distance. Meanwhile, the red-haired girl complains about something with a lollipop in her mouth, and a guy with an afro looks on with a shocked expression. The redhead then appears on a building's balcony, looking none too pleased. With a bored expression, she continues to suck on her lollipop, not caring about anything. Bomb then calls out to Red, seeming worried about her friend, and she watches the girl from afar, who is looking out over the city from the top of the building. Elsewhere, the blonde girl eats a cookie with the happiest look on her face. The scene then takes us to a big city full of buildings and lots of greenery, where our hero lives in a luxurious and super modern skyscraper, and the little blonde girl is amazed by the macaron that tastes heavenly. With her mouth full of food, the girl gets spooked by something that suddenly happens. A moment later, our MC arrives home and is greeted by the two girls. The blonde then says she didn't follow him for the food, but that the sausage bread was great. Finally, she's reunited with Green, and the two are super happy to see each other again. Green compliments Gold, saying she's gotten even more beautiful since the last time they met. The blonde then asks how long her friend has been there, and if she was living alone with him. Our hero then dismisses his clone and tells him to get back to work for now. Right after, the red-haired girl appears, peeking through the bedroom door. With a serious face, our MC just watches the girls' reunion. The redhead then mumbles something, and seems to dislike the other's presence. But Gold doesn't care and runs to hug her friend, shouting her name. She then complains about the smell, and says the Red Clan only likes bad things. The redhead then calls her girl, and shoves a piece of bread in her mouth. On top of that, Red threatens her, saying she'll rip off her beak if she doesn't stop chirping. After the fight, he gathers the three of them in the living room and asks for their ages. Green says she's 20, and Gold excitedly says she's 10 years old. With a bored look, Red reveals she's 15 years old. Gold then explains that dragons grow up faster and don't need to be treated like kids. Finally, the blonde asks if Urium is a nickname, but the redhead says she doesn't know anything. With a smile, Bomb explains that Mr. gave her the name and that her name is Spring. Gold is confused because they haven't even had their coming of age ceremony yet. She then asks if her name is Autumn, and our hero confirms that she is now Yu-Gi-Oh. He also reveals that when the last one is born, her name will be Jayo, which means winter. And our boy already knew her necklace was a blue dragon egg that would hatch soon. Yule is impressed with him, but the guy just says she doesn't need to know everything, since everyone is gathered. Our MC says they need to keep one thing in mind. He forbids them from leaving his sight while they enjoy their life on Earth. Red then calls him a communist for wanting to control all their fun. The three girls sit in silence, and the redhead glares at them angrily. Red then understands she can play nearby, and Green stands up right after. Bomb then calls the girls to go out because they need IDs and supplies. Gold gets super excited, But Red thinks the idea of shopping with no money is a bad one. However, Green shows a card with no limit and tells them not to worry about cash. She then asks our hero if there's a spending limit for them. Our hero then replies that they can spend as much as they want without a care in the world. Even so, he takes the card back with a look that says he already sees the damage coming. After shopping, an excited Yahello calls Mr. to show off her new clothes. Meanwhile, Urium just stays silent, watching everything with her usual bored expression. Our MC then compliments the little blonde girl, saying the clothes suit her very well. And so, the three girls have a great time shopping and enjoying their day off. Back home, U-Bomb apologizes because they spent so much that they maxed out the limit. A moment later, Urium appears and shows that she also bought a few things for herself. Yahello then shows off her new outfits and asks if she doesn't look adorable. According to the blonde, there were so many pretty clothes that she ended up buying a ton. Besides clothes, Urium also took the chance to buy a new sword since hers broke. With that, the girls start opening their purchases while our hero just watches from a distance, and on his watch, a list of absurd expenses that went way over the limit appears. He then asks if the redhead liked the new sword, and she just says it's not trash. Finally, Yahello shows that she also bought a watch just like our MCs. Yahello then hands some clothes to Urium, but the redhead doesn't accept the gift. U-Bomb then explains that her friend is just awkward at expressing herself but will be grateful. Our hero then asks if Green didn't buy anything, since she's the only one empty-handed. She then points to a plant pot on the table, and says she bought that for herself. And as he gets closer, he realizes it's a small flower pot with a little seedling. Our MC says that growing plants is good for you, but the girl doesn't understand why. She then explains it's because the flowers will bloom and beautify the place. With a smile, U-Bomb asks if that won't stay in his memory forever, and with a hopeful look, she says she hopes that memory lasts forever. After that, the girl says she has a question for our main character. She wants to know if there's a way for them to enjoy life while following his rules. He then confirms there is a way, leaving the girl curious about his answer. A moment later, he shows them an application for Lair Academy and invites them to study there. The two girls are then in shock at the proposal of going to school. Finally, the scene cuts to a building at night with a voice saying, "I'm home." Angrily, Urium complains that Yahello's been saying nothing but unlucky things all morning. One of the girls then notices something horrible and gets the other two's attention. Yahello gets worried and thinks she's going to fail for being a little piggy. After the interview, Urium complains about how long it took, and Yahello looks for Mr. Our hero then says he has a present for her, making her super curious, and he claims it's something she likes even more than bread and macarons. And a TV show, a host announces an incredible guest for the show. Our MC then hands a package to Yahello, who is amazed by the smell. On the show, the guest laughs and says she's human too, and doesn't live on dew. And that guest is none other than the famous pop star, Baby Yellow. The host asks her if she knows the show, and the blonde says she's excited, because on the show, the best chefs cook each guest's favorite food right on the spot. Back at the apartment, Yahello says she thinks she failed the interview and hugs him. The host jokes and asks what her favorite food is, and if she lives on dew. Finally, Yahello panics and wonders what she'll do if she's the only one who fails. On the show, Yahello thinks for a moment and reveals what her all-time favorite food is. And to no one's surprise, she chooses a nice fried chicken with soda. The girls are amazed by the smell, and Urium teases her for never having eaten it before. Our hero then steps back and says it's just fried chicken, but the smell is really good. U-Bomb then calls him to eat, but he says he's fine and tells them to enjoy. With a little blush, she insists and invites him to eat with them at the table. A moment later, the balcony door opens, and our MC gets a call. And on the other end of the line is the Lair admissions team, looking for Guardian UGT. The young man then confirms it's him, and the man says there was a small problem with the interview. They ask about the candidate U-Bomb, but our boy hasn't heard anything about her. The reason is that the girl got a perfect score on the selection interview. On top of that, the interviewers praised her and nominated her as the student speaker. Meanwhile, Yahello is enjoying the chicken, but the problem is that Bomb turned down the offer. They ask our hero to convince her, but he respects her decision and refuses. Finally, he hangs up, and Urium approaches him with a not so friendly look. Urium then asks if the call was about the green girl, and he corrects her. She thinks the name Bomb is super cheesy and mocks him for wanting to play house. With a sour look, the redhead just stays silent, watching the guy. He then asks her why they're being sent to Lair, and she answers. According to the red-haired girl, she only wants one thing in life, to fight. And he explains that the world's elite gather there, making it the perfect place. With a determined look, she seems excited about the idea of new challenges. Our hero then snuffs out her cigarette on the wall with a quick move. The girl then challenges him to a serious fight, at least once in her life. She knows he's strong, but she wants to know just how strong he really is. Our MC just stays silent and stares at the girl with an empty look. He then ignores her and tells her to go inside and eat chicken. And the redhead gets furious. She then gets mad, flips him the bird, and tells him to go eat dirt. Yahello then tries to calm her down and offers a piece of chicken, but she refuses. However, the redhead ends up taking a bite of the chicken, and is surprised by how delicious it is. In a seemingly normal beginning, our main character, Tae, wakes up from a strange and mysterious dream. It's a gray day, yet our hero feels something is off. Still sleepy, our boy faces the harsh reality of his routine. He wakes up late for class and has to rush so he won't be late. At school, Bomb, the prettiest girl in the class, draws his attention to a letter on his desk. It's a note that piques Tae's curiosity. His curiosity is huge, so Tae decides to meet the person who left the mysterious letter on the school's rooftop. There, he finds out the sender is Yuriam. It's then that Yuriam and Tae begin a deep conversation. The girl shows concern and asks the boy to help her uncover something that's haunting her. After that, our MC walks with Yahello, with whom he seems to have a closer relationship. The conversation seems light, but Yahello appears to know more than she lets on. Still, Yahello just shows her support for our boy, and they continue on their way together. They seem to be longtime friends. They're walking down the street when our MC gets a text message from an unknown number. After reading the message, Tae seems a bit disturbed. It says directly, "I saw you." Curiosity and suspicion take over Tae, so he runs into a dark alley, where anything could happen. There, our MC finds Yuriam being assaulted. He has to do something, immediately. Tae rushes to save Yuriam but is at a disadvantage. He's not strong enough to fight alone. However, in a moment of pure adrenaline, Tae focuses and becomes stronger. He manages to knock down the attacker, and a new phase begins. After saving Yuriam, feels tired but proud. He wonders what happened and why he suddenly became stronger. In the end, Tae finds a bruised Yuriam, and they're in a hospital ready to rest. Will he and Yuriam become best friends? With a worried look, Bomb starts talking about her friend's situation. Meanwhile, several students are already fighting each other in the Lair arenas, and the exchange of blows with wooden swords is intense among the candidates. All this action is happening in the Blue Dragon Hall of the Blue Dragon Academy. A man then asks the guardians to calm down so they don't scare the students. A moment later, an instructor calls for candidate 7, number 124, and our hero appears, accompanied by a couple who recognizes him from somewhere. He then grips the hilt of his sword, preparing for whatever comes next. The couple then wishes him good luck, and tells him to be careful during the test. Bomb and will arrive later, and the other students are stunned by their beauty. In the audience, some guardians worry about Yuriam and what she might do. And from up there, they watch the various arenas where the students are fighting. A white-haired man then introduces himself as Professor Yan from the hall. He also says he's looking forward to working with all the guardians present. Our hero then thinks about the professor and describes him as someone dignified and skilled. A blonde girl with blue eyes named Sophia just watches the arena in silence. In the audience, a guy asks his friend who he's betting on, the redhead or her. The friend then replies that he's definitely putting all his money on Sophia. The blonde then grumbles and says that this fight had better not be boring, and she comments to herself that her dad seems really worried about the fight. The reason is that she's part of the Ural, a Russian special forces unit, and they're famous for their brutal training methods that are almost torture. Yuriam then yells that she's really going to run away, and the blonde glares at her mockingly. A big, strong man then shouts Sophia's name and says he expects great things from her, because she was already part of the Ural, even before becoming an academy cadet. The guy in the audience then says the redhead is more his type than the blonde. Yuriam then taunts her and tells her to run back to daddy's arms, and the redhead yells back that if that's the case, she'll run away from home for good. The two then get ready to fight, and Sophia repeats that she hopes it's not boring. Her guardian then yells like crazy, making her super embarrassed by the scene. With a serious look, Urium tells Sophia to shut her mouth once and for all, because according to the redhead, if she doesn't shut up, she'll regret it big time later. With a wicked smile, the red-haired girl challenges her to try her luck. The guys in the audience comment that the redhead isn't messing around either. A moment later, an instructor calls for candidates 7 and 124. Sophia then gets into a combat stance and prepares for the fight to begin. Urium also gets ready and faces her opponent with a confident smile. With the push of a button, the match finally starts, and the two face off. As soon as it begins, the blonde charges forward and tries to land a punch on the redhead. The two then start trading blows, and Urium manages to block the attack. And the redhead compliments her opponent's speed, but doesn't seem impressed. She then attacks with her staff, but Sophia manages to dodge it with agility. However, a slash from the blonde ends up tearing Urium's uniform, leaving her furious. She complains that she barely got the new uniform and it's already ruined in the fight. The two then back away and face each other again, preparing for the next round. With a blue aura, Sophia prepares to use one of her special techniques. She then charges at Urium with her wooden sword in hand. The blonde then groans in pain after taking a hit from the red-haired girl, with a wicked smile. The redhead seems to be having a lot of fun with the fight. She then mocks Sophia's bangs, calling them a barcode. The two then begin an intense exchange of blows, full of acrobatics. Urium then manages to land a powerful punch on her opponent's face. And then she almost hits the blonde's neck with her staff, who gets spooked. The fight continues, and Sophia manages to land a hit on the redhead, sending her flying. Urium then taunts her, saying she's easier to deal with now, and with a demonic smile, she leaps at Sophia with her staves. The redhead then lands a solid knee to the blonde's face with all her might. She then takes advantage of the opening and throws her against the arena cage without mercy, and she finishes with a staff blow to Sophia's back, who screams in pain. Finally, Urium creates several clones, and they all attack the blonde at the same time. The guys in the audience are shocked because Sophia was completely destroyed in the fight. Because according to them, the redhead doesn't even have a scratch and was just playing around. The blonde then just stays silent with her head down, unable to believe what happened. Even though she's defeated, the girl clenches her fist and says the fight isn't over yet. She then gets up and tells her guardian that she's fine and that this isn't the end. With a sigh of relief, the man seems to calm down a bit. A nurse then says the emergency treatment is over and she'll recover. However, Sophia is left with a terrified and hateful look after her defeat. Urium then approaches and points her wooden sword at her neck, and with a victorious smile, she mocks the blonde for being total trash in the fight. The guardian then rushes to help Sophia, and the redhead complains that this place is full of weaklings, because according to him, the girl is just a pretty face to put on posters. Still, he says that finding her now might have been a blessing for them. He then kneels and says she did her best but can't beat her now. And the other students comment that the redhead is too strong and Sophia is just a nobody. With a smile, Sophia's guardian says that defeat makes people stronger. The nurse then tries to warn him about the girl, but he doesn't pay attention, because the blonde gets up and says she hasn't given up and was just pushed back. With a blue aura around her body, she yells that she's fine and that the fight continues. Urium then questions where she thinks she's going, because the fight isn't over. Suddenly, a flash of light happens, and the two clash again with everything they've got. Sophia then grabs the redhead and tries to use some kind of special ability on her. Our hero just watches the scene in silence with a dark and mysterious look. Urium gets furious with the blonde's attitude and cusses her out in a rage. In a fit of fury, Sophia screams for the redhead to go to hell once and for all, and the audience is shocked by the violence of the scene and can't believe what they're seeing. Our MC then gets a not so friendly look on his face as he watches the fight. The two then grapple and jump onto the arena cage in an aerial combat. And in the end, both of them fall hard to the ground, completely exhausted and injured. With a dagger in hand, Sophia complains about the situation and seems unwilling to accept defeat. With a confused look, Urium doesn't understand what's happening in the arena, because Sophia takes the opportunity to grab her by the hair with all her strength, and with a blue aura, she throws her to the other side of the arena without any mercy. The redhead then gets up and, with a mocking smile, complains about the blonde's attitude. Meanwhile, Sophia is seen lying on the ground, completely bloodied and injured. Even so, Yuriam says it's not over yet and pulls the dagger out of her body. With the weapon in hand, she prepares to continue the fight and shows no pain, and in an instant, she's in front of Sophia and lands a solid punch. The guys in the audience get scared and wonder if they should stop the fight, because with her eyes glowing red, the redhead says she's going to return the favor. Sophia then panics and, with a blue aura, yells that her opponent is done for. The two then start trading punches with auras of power around them. However, Yuriam is stronger and throws Sophia and the other students away. The professor then yells for the mages to create a space and suspends the evaluation. Finally, Sophia's guardian holds her and yells if they can't see the situation. Yuriam yells at the professor, saying she can't calm down at all. Even so, he says he understands her feelings but can't let things get worse. She then gets mad and throws the dagger on the ground, asking why they only pick on her. The professor then advises her to get treated first, as they've already called her guardian. Sophia's guardian says the redhead could have easily subdued her with her skills, and he accuses Yuriam of trying to finish Sophia, even though she attacked first. The professor then tries to calm things down, but the redhead won't stop yelling in anger. Meanwhile, the two girls take a picture with a keychain that looks like Yuriam. The professor then says there's no need to search anymore, because the guardian has arrived, and several men in white lab coats appear to break up the fight and control the situation. He then warns that if the fight continues, his entire family could get involved. And with a wicked smile, he whispers in her ear about the Yu family and threatens her. A moment later, he uses his magic to create a space and resolve everything at once. Suddenly, our hero appears and introduces himself as that girl's guardian. Yuriam then gets a worried look on her face, and doesn't seem to like that at all. The professor then thinks that he's never heard of our hero, or his family before. Our MC then tells them not to gang up on an injured girl and to talk to him instead. Yuriam and the professor fall silent and just watch our boy's actions. With a sour look, the redhead seems to really dislike the situation. The professor then serves a famous tea from Taiwan to try to calm things down, and he says that luckily, neither of them was seriously injured, and Yuriam has already been discharged. With a smile, he comments that the tea has the power to calm people's minds. Sophia's guardian then apologizes and introduces himself as Mikhailov to our hero. He also says that if the two of them come to an agreement, he'll handle the rest later. Because according to him, Sophia is young and immature, and that's why she let her emotions get the best of her. The man then deeply regrets that something like this happened between them. The scene then takes us to a modern building surrounded by a magical blue aura. The professor says he doesn't know where to start to resolve the whole situation, and he suggests they end things on good terms, since they'll be seeing each other a lot around there. Finally, he analyzes our hero and realizes he's a high-level ranker. With a serious expression, our hero says he doesn't accept the guardian's apology. Mikhailov is shocked and stands up angrily, not understanding his refusal. Our MC then says they're not in the same position to be talking, and he calls the apology pathetic, because he doesn't believe the guardian's story. On top of that, he states that if he really wants to apologize, that's what he should be doing. The man then gets angry and asks if he should bring the injured girl to apologize. The professor tries to calm things down, but the situation seems to be spiraling out of control. Mikhailov then lunges at our hero, but he isn't intimidated by the threat. Our MC then warns him that there's a limit to how nice he can be. The man yells that they are both guardians, and that he should just accept it, and in a rage, he screams that it all happened suddenly, and wasn't his fault. However, our hero attacks him with a blue aura and questions him about his family. Because the real reason he's here is to know why he didn't stop the girl. Suddenly, our MC appears with a dagger at the man's shoe and threatens him. Finally, with a blue aura surrounding both of them, he questions him about making an enemy of the Rial. With a cold look, our hero calls Mikhailov by his name and stares at him seriously. Our MC then appears in his sharp suit, ready for action. Mikhailov and the professor are shocked by the aura and pressure coming from the young man. With a gesture, he dismisses the two and says he's leaving because the conversation is over. The professor then lets out a sarcastic little laugh and seems to be enjoying the situation. Mikhailov defends himself, saying he was on high alert but still didn't see him. Yuriam then appears in more casual clothes with a bandage on her face. He then asks how she's doing, and the redhead says it was just a little scratch. With a worried look, she asks if he also thinks she was in the wrong. He then says it was good, and the redhead falls silent, not understanding his answer. Because according to our boy, next time, she just has to do it without anyone seeing. Yuriam then says she still thinks the whole mess was her fault. And even though she feels it's unfair, she feels she should have acted more like an adult. But our hero reassures her, saying she did great and doesn't need to blame herself. Finally, he advises her to stick to busy streets to avoid future trouble. The two then start walking together down the hallway of Lair Academy. With a smile and a sharp tooth, Yuriam seems satisfied with the advice. And she warns him not to regret it later, because she's going to follow his advice. Our hero then tells her to pack her things for when they get home, because, according to him, they're moving into the Lair Academy dorms. Goal, in the form of a little chick, teases her friend for being happy about the news. Yuriam then complains, because she doesn't want another lecture about her behavior. But the professor says it's not a lecture, but a very good offer for her. He then calls them over to talk, and the redhead glares at him suspiciously, because even with everything settled, he has something important to propose to the two of them. With a gentle smile, the professor asks to speak with them for a moment, and he invites Yuriam to be the representative of the Academy's freshmen. Our MC then reveals he's close to the vice principal, and the professor understands. Besides benefits like a scholarship and artifacts, she would be the face of the Academy. Our hero then questions if he has the authority to make this proposal on his own. With a cold look, our hero turns down the offer, and the professor insists once more, because in his mind, our MC has already imagined finishing him off countless times. He then says that the cadet's opinion is the most important, as he's just the guardian. Still, he held back again and again to not lose control right there. And that's why, ever since Wyan showed up, he's felt an immense urge to attack him. Our hero then says he understands what he wants, but that man needs to lose more. The professor then says many changes are coming to the Academy and invites her. Yuriam is confused by the proposal, but he confirms she heard everything right. In the end, the professor says the choice is the students, and the three start walking. And it's explained that there are humans who have accepted the abyss and desire chaos. Unlike superhumans who receive blessings, they are called demons. With her mouth wide open, the redhead shouts a loud no, and rejects the proposal on the spot. After all, because of demons, he's already lost many precious people in other cycles. The professor then invites her to join him and shape the future of the Academy, because according to our hero, both he and Minam, June are actually demons. Yuriam then cuts him off and says they need to go home and pack for the move, and she explains that she was just lying in bed doing nothing and got bored. That's why she thought it would be a good idea to fight someone to pass the time. With a wicked smile, Professor just stays silent, watching the girl. He then approaches the edge and gets everyone's attention on the scene. Our hero then tells Yuriam to look down, and she's confused. And down below, a crowd of reporters is waiting for a statement, because according to the professor, they came from all over the world to hear what he has to say. He also threatens her, saying that one word from him could change her life at Lair. Still, the redhead doesn't care and says she won't do what he wants and is leaving. The professor is then left speechless and just watches the two of them walk away, and, with a dark look, he warns that he hopes she doesn't regret it later. As soon as she leaves, a reporter approaches her and asks if she's Kadet Yuriam, and a crowd of reporters rushes towards her, asking all sorts of questions. The girl then gets surrounded and is startled by the number of people there. Our hero then tells them to stop pressuring an injured girl, but the redhead disagrees. The reporter then gets spooked when Yuriam grabs her broadcasting device. With a sparkle in her eyes, Yul is super excited about what's about to happen, and she peeks through the door so she doesn't miss a single detail of the unfolding scene. The redhead then gets surrounded by reporters and prepares to give a statement. Elsewhere, Go all runs happily, shouting that the best room is hers. With sparkling eyes and a heart in her mouth, the blonde is amazed. And as she enters the room, she's impressed by the luxury and size of the place. On top of that, the living room is also huge, leaving the girl jaw dropped. The reporter then says that the interview video is blowing up on social media, and the scene takes us to the Lair dorms with their modern and luxurious houses. With a wicked smile, Yuriam grabs the device and prepares to speak. Yul then says it's not bad at all and that she'll honor that room by using it well, and she throws herself onto the giant bed, praising the state of the art TV in the sunlight. Finally, we get a panoramic view of the futuristic and green city of Lair. It's explained that a dragon's polymorph unravels when the egg is close to hatching. Yuriam then says the balcony is perfect for smoking, and that the room is hers. But Guy, just smiles, and the redhead ends up giving the room to her friend. In another room, Bomb carefully sprays water on the blue dragon egg, and, with a gentle smile, she greets the baby dragon that hasn't been born yet. Our hero then watches the scene, and the girl asks if he saw anything. Yuriam then asks if wants to know about something, and she confirms it. The redhead doesn't get why people freak out so much about it, and questions it, and Yuriam complains that she called the room first. But JL says the other one is bigger. The little blonde then says, "You don't need to know everything to live a good life." Our MC then asks why Bomb is spraying water on the egg. With a sly smile, the redhead says it's time for the little chickie's sex ed. Yuriam's interview from a few days ago then went viral and made the news. Meanwhile, Bomb continues to take care of the dragon egg with great care and attention. She then comments that Lair is in an uproar because of Yuriam, and he's surprised. With a scared look, Guy says yes and confirms she saw some strange things. Yuriam then wakes up and asks what's so important that's going on, and she's seen lying in bed, looking very tired and sleepy. Meanwhile, in another room, Bomb screams for help because something happened to the egg. Bull then tries to explain to her friend what she just learned about life, and the scene takes us to the beautiful gardens of the Lair dorms, with birds singing. With a sly smile, the redhead says the baby has no veto power in the conversation, and she appears sleeping peacefully in her bed, hugging her pillow. With a naughty smile, Yuriam says no, and that she actually watched something else. Then panics and yells that it's okay, and that she'll listen to the explanation. She then runs after her friend and says that if it's nothing, she'll have to deal with her, because Yuriam complains that she's tired from staying up all night. Then runs into the room and says something huge just happened. And at the end of the chapter, we have a beautiful art piece of all the main characters together. The redhead then gets up and wonders why everyone is gathered so early. Suddenly, the blue dragon egg starts to crack and get ready to hatch. In a flashback, an outstretched hand begs for help amidst the chaos. With a surprised look, Bomb just watches the egg moving in front of her. And our hero remembers the last birth he witnessed in his life. Yuriam then realizes the situation and just says, "Call," without much emotion, because the memory of the last birth wasn't pretty for him at all, and that unpleasant memory comes rushing back to our MC's mind. Suddenly, a small blue dragon starts to come out of the broken egg. In his memory, the environment wasn't good, and the hospital had been destroyed by war. A woman then begs him to save her baby, but it was too late. In the present, the egg trembles, and it seems like Yahello is about to be born finally. In his memory, the baby wasn't breathing and seemed to have passed at birth, and the three girls are amazed and shocked by the birth of a new life. Our hero then wonders why he's remembering that moment now. Finally, the little blue dragon pokes its head out and looks at the world. With a smile, Bomb congratulates everyone on the birth of the new baby dragon, and little Yahello appears, all shy and cute with rosy cheeks. Bomb then cleans him with a little cloth, very carefully and with motherly love. And she explains that she learned this from her mom, but they usually lick the baby. She then offers the baby to our hero, but he refuses, and Yahello offers to take him. With a smile, Bomb hands over the little dragon and asks her to be careful with his skin. Yahello then hugs him and says this is so healing and feels refreshed. With a sparkle in her eye, she seems to have had a brilliant idea suddenly. She turns to Yuriam and asks if she wants to hold the baby too. The blonde then insists, and the redhead gets all awkward and doesn't know what to do. Bomb then asks Yahello to be gentle and not force her friend into anything. Little Yahello then yawns and seems very sleepy after being born. With a blushing face, Yuriam holds the baby dragon on a cushion and watches him. Yahello then teases her, saying now she understands why she insisted so much. The two then turn to our hero and invite him to hold the baby too. With a mocking smile, Yuriam teases our hero for acting so dignified. She threatens to toss the baby for him to catch, saying it's not her responsibility. On top of that, the redhead reveals her goal is to see the stone. Face guy all flustered. With a wicked smile, she prepares to toss the little blue dragon into the air. Jae-ol then panics and yells that her friend has gone completely crazy. But our hero manages to catch the baby in mid-air, and Jae-ol praises his reflexes. Urium then complains that it wasn't fun, and Yeol says she's not normal. With the baby in his arms, Bomb suggests that he gently pet the little dragon. Our MC then stays silent and just observes the creature in his arms. And in a slightly awkward way, he starts to pet the little dragon's head. Ol then snaps a picture and says a moment like this needs to be recorded. With a rose in her hand, Bomb suggests they take a picture all together with the baby. She then winks and says the rose is an accessory for their photo shoot. In the blink of an eye, the flower appears on our hero's ear and on the little dragon. Finally, he poses for the picture holding the baby with a not so happy face. The girls then take several pictures, and Yeol says they look great together. Our hero then tells them to just take the picture already, so they can get it over with. Urium complains about being embarrassed, but the others insist she join the photo. With a smile, Ol gets ready to take the selfie and starts the countdown. And so, the four of them take a beautiful family photo with the little baby dragon in their arms. In another moment, Jael appears with a baby bottle, getting ready to eat. Bomb wants to teach him the polymorph through a magic transfer, and this technique is a magic circle that allows the transfer of powers between individuals. For this, one must channel mana from one person to another in a ritual, and whoever receives the magic gains the power at no cost. But the donor risks their own life. Our hero then asks if she's sure, and Bomb explains the dragon's situation. She and the others learn their human form, where they lived before coming here. But Jael didn't have the chance to learn anything before being born on Earth, and since they grow up fast, she wants him to have fun experiences soon. Finally, he agrees to help, and she teases him for not knowing much about magic. Embarrassed, Bomb asks if he can hold the baby in case she drops him. Our hero then comes closer and sits next to her on the living room sofa, and she asks him to stay close while she does the magic transfer. He then says he has a request, making her curious about his proposal. With a smile, she agrees and tells him not to be so far away from her. However, the girl gets all blushy and says it's hard to do that with him so close. He doesn't understand, and she makes up an excuse, saying the sofa is too hard. Still, Bomb finds it strange because the sofa is made of top-quality material. Our hero then worries about the baby and sits next to her to help. The girl then explains that she might get exhausted and accidentally drop Gaio. She then calls him closer, but he says he doesn't see a reason for it. And a few days later, the scene takes us to the modern houses of the dorms. Lying on the floor, Bomb says it's finally over and looks exhausted from the process. Our hero then agrees to help and sits right next to her on the sofa. Finally, she begins the ritual, and a green aura envelopes her along with the baby dragon. With her foot twitching, Bomb tells him to wake her up if anything bad happens. Our hero then just watches the scene in silence with a serious expression. The girl praises him for the good work and thanks him for helping too. With a surprised and blushing look, Bomb seems not to have expected his praise. She then says she'll rest for a bit, and reminds him to burp the baby. The girl turns around, surprised and confused, not understanding what he meant by that, and a moment later, she's seen sleeping peacefully in her very comfortable bed. Our MC then picks her up in his arms, and she complains that being carried is embarrassing. He then takes her to the bedroom, and lays her on the bed with great care. With a surprised look, our hero wonders if it's not time for something. He then approaches the girl's bedroom door, and opens it slowly, and he picks her up in his arms once more. And she looks at him with a confused and surprised expression. She then asks if she's heavy, and he compliments her, saying she's very light. Suddenly, a blue aura starts to emanate from inside Bomb's room. Finally, our MC says he'll take her to his room and carries her in his arms. Surrounded by a blue aura, Bomb transforms into her human form in front of our hero, and she appears as a beautiful girl with blue hair and eyes of the same color. Our MC is then left speechless and just watches the scene in silence. Elsewhere, at the Lair police station, his coworkers are talking. They can't believe he caught criminals they couldn't find in months. One of them then invites him out to eat, and says he'll treat him to a feast today. His coworker then teases him, saying he's just using the company card to pay. But our hero turns down the invitation and says he needs to leave early today. The two then complain because he skipped the last dinner, and is always leaving on time. He then denies having a girlfriend and says it's not what they think. Still, they insist, but our MC just says goodbye and leaves. The scene then takes us to a quiet, tree-lined street in the city of Lair. A woman then appears, talking to someone on a holographic device, and she tells the person to stop contacting her, because she considers her a loser. Finally, it's revealed that the one at work is our MC's clone. With a surprised look, the girl wonders what her master is doing here, and she appears in front of him and says he called for her. So she came. Our hero then says it's Yu Jiao all, and that he's coming back from the hall. A couple then compliments the baby, and says they make an adorable couple. With a sour look, the girl just watches the scene in silence. She then offers to hold the baby, but he refuses the girl's help. The girl is shocked by the refusal, and doesn't understand her master's attitude, and little Jiao all just looks at the situation with a disapproving glance. Our hero then says it's okay, because she can already walk on her own. Because the shadow of the Archduke was an ability used to exert influence. The little one then touches his chest, and our MC asks what that is. Meanwhile, Bomb is sick in bed from the after effects of the transfer. The girl then watches the two of them, sitting on the park bench from a distance. But now, the ability has become a clone for its new master, Yuji Tae. Finally, she asks why he brought Jiao all himself and not the others. Our hero then says he knows her emotions because they are transmitted to him. The clone then understands and asks what he meant by all that before. Our MC then asks her if she wanted the baby dragon that badly. But she says it's hard to understand, because he only seeks a mundane life now. And she doesn't get why he sends her to places where her influence is needed. On top of that, she states it's not a complaint but rather doubts about her mission. He then tells her to go have a drink with the team, because they seemed disappointed earlier, and he tells her to go work quietly because there will be work for her soon. She'll have to part ways with them soon, and needs to prepare for it. The clone then understands her master's orders and says goodbye to leave. Our hero then apologizes and says it's natural for her to think that way. After all her previous masters used her to eliminate those who needed to be dealt with, and none of them ever desired a mundane life, but something more meaningful. With a sour look, our MC just watches the clone walk away. Finally, he thinks that it's still hard to deal with the other two girls at home. Our hero then says he knows her emotions, because they are transmitted to him. The clone then understands and asks what he meant by all that before. Our MC then asks her if she wanted the baby dragon that badly. But she says it's hard to understand, because he only seeks a mundane life now. And she doesn't get why he sends her to places where her influence is needed. On top of that, she states it's not a complaint, but rather doubts about her mission. He then tells her to go have a drink with the team, because they seemed disappointed earlier, and he tells her to go work quietly, because there will be work for her soon. She'll have to part ways with them soon, and needs to prepare for it. The clone then understands her master's orders, and says goodbye to leave. Our hero then apologizes, and says it's natural for her to think that way. After all her previous masters used her to eliminate those who needed to be dealt with, and none of them ever desired a mundane life, but something more meaningful. With a sour look, our MC just watches the clone walk away. Finally, he thinks that it's still hard to deal with the other two girls at home. With a bored look, our hero watches little Jiao in her human form, and he wonders if she thinks the magic transfer is a form of affection. With a confused little face, the blue-haired little one just stares at our MC. He then gets closer and pets her chin with a serious expression. The sky then turns a pinkish color, and our hero looks thoughtfully at the horizon. He then picks her up, and the two stand in the park with a teddy bear on the ground. The little one then holds his hand, and he realizes something is coming towards them. Meanwhile, Bomb is sleeping, hugging Jiao in her dragon form. Our hero then walks with the little one, hand in hand, through the park at sunset. Suddenly, Guy Yule appears and calls out to him excitedly with a guitar case on her back. The scene then takes us to a flashback of his battles against the apocalyptic dragons, where he fought countless demons and creatures to try to save the world. And he remembers seeing a girl on a cross amidst the destruction and chaos. Gaol then hugs him and says she just went to the shopping district for a moment. Finally, the blonde hugs the little one, and notices something strange about Jiao. Jiao then explains that dragons can read emotions through skin contact, and with a smile, she says so there is something, Mr. Didn't know about them. Our hero then makes a saluting gesture, and seems a bit embarrassed by the revelation. He then asks what that is on her back, and the blonde gets all excited. With an embarrassed smile, she shows that it's a guitar she bought at the store, and in an instant, she's already playing the instrument with great skill and passion. Our MC just watches the scene in silence with a serious look on his face. The little one then explains that it's a way to express feelings, and he understands. Our hero then bites his lip and seems to be reflecting on something important. Yahello says she bought the guitar to express her soul without needing to touch. But a moment later, she complains that her fingers are hurting from playing the guitar so much. Still, she says she'll try her best to learn to play the instrument well. The scene then cuts to a broken guitar next to some used syringes, and Yahello is seen lying on the floor, all bloodied and surrounded by bottles. Finally, our MC stares at the scene with a cold and emotionless look. Our hero then thinks it's better than causing trouble outside. With a dark look, he just watches the scene in silence and seems worried. He then places a hand on Yahello's shoulder and comforts her with a gentle gesture. The blonde is surprised and says he doesn't need to work so hard to please her. Our MC then asks if Yubom is awake yet, but she says no. Yahello then says yes and seems a bit nervous about his question. Bomb is still sleeping, and her fever just won't go down. The blonde then holds the little one's hand and tells her to wash her hands after going out. Our hero then tells her to take it easy and not worry so much about everything. He then asks about Yuriam, and Yahello says she's busy. The redhead got so hooked on a drama that she hasn't left her room all day. Yahello then wonders if her friend Spring has woken up from her nap yet, and she comments that it's the first time she's seen her friend obsessed with something other than fighting. Suddenly, our hero gets a serious expression and tells Yahello to hurry. He tells her to take Winter to the room and not to leave until he says so. Yahello then invites Winter to read a fairy tale book with her. Our hero then watches the two and heads to Bomb's room in silence. With his hand on the doorknob, he prepares to open the door and enter the room. And as he opens the door, he peeks inside the room with a serious expression. In a dark place, our MC just watches the scene in silence, and he finds several knights in armor lying defeated on the floor. One of them then glares at him and says he's the only one who can do that, and the knight asks if he was the one who did that to the green dragon. The guardians are dragon knights who use magic to protect their nests, and they use their skills to trap monsters and useful humans for their own purposes. On top of that, some of them serve as bodyguards for the hatchlings who go out to play. Our hero then wonders if he used sleep magic on Yubom to calm her down. One of the knights then charges at our MC in a rage, and he screams, demanding an answer about what he did to the green dragon. But our hero questions him back, saying he should introduce himself before invading. With a dark aura, the knight says the right to ask questions belongs only to the strong, and he claims that only he can ask questions here, and calls our hero an inferior human. Our MC then realizes the Guardian's barrier magic is high level. The knight then says that's his final warning and prepares to attack him, and he demands to know what our boy did to the green dragon and calls him a human. Our hero then explains that the blue dragon was born, and that Bomb pushed herself too hard. The knight then sees Bomb sleeping in bed and seems to understand the situation. He then asks who our MC is, and he answers with confidence, and he declares himself their guardian. But the knight doesn't believe him and laughs in his face. Our hero then asks if he knows what kind of beings he's protecting, and he says yes. He then asks why they came so early, and the knights are shocked, because according to the knight, our MC knows too much for a mere human. They then introduce themselves as guardians and keepers of the history of causality. The knight says that our hero seems far from benevolent and threatens him. Finally, our boy tells them not to worry and attacks the knights by surprise. The knight is shocked because his sword was repelled so easily. With a purple aura, he yells and prepares to attack our MC with everything he's got. He then realizes that this human is much stronger than he expected, and in the blink of an eye, all the knights are lying defeated on the floor. One of them then complains because they were defeated by a very weak attack. Our hero then says he should have realized sooner that this man was dangerous. He found it strange that a mere human was taking care of dragons and knew of their existence, and Knight then gets up and glares at our MC with a look of pure hatred, and he attacks him with his weapon. But our boy dodges with ease. He then uses his intangible sword ability to defend against the attacks. The other knights then surround him and tell him to just watch from the back. They realize that our hero is a transcendent being who should not be provoked. With a purple aura, he attacks one of the knights with his energy dagger, and he warns that there will be no pain, because the attack is fast and precise. Finally, he defeats all the knights and traps them in a sort of shadow prison. With a dark aura, the knight says the right to ask questions belongs only to the strong, and he claims that only he can ask questions here, and calls our hero an inferior human. Our MC then realizes the Guardian's barrier magic is high level. The knight then says that's his final warning and prepares to attack him, and he demands to know what our boy did to the green dragon and calls him a human. Our hero then explains that the blue dragon was born, and that Bon pushed herself too hard. The knight then sees Bon sleeping in bed, and seems to understand the situation. He then asks who our MC is, and he answers with confidence, and he declares himself their guardian. But the knight doesn't believe him and laughs in his face. Our hero then asks if he knows what kind of beings he's protecting, and he says yes. He then asks why they came so early, and the knights are shocked, because according to the knight, our MC knows too much for a mere human. They then introduce themselves as guardians and keepers of the history of causality. The knight says that our hero seems far from benevolent and threatens him. Finally, our boy tells them not to worry and attacks the knights by surprise. Our hero then thinks it's better than causing trouble outside. With a dark look, he just watches the scene in silence and seems worried. He then places a hand on Ol's shoulder and comforts her with a gentle gesture. The blonde is surprised and says he doesn't need to work so hard to please her. Our MC then asks if Bon is awake yet, but she says no. Ol then says yes and seems a bit nervous about his question. Bon is still sleeping, and her fever just won't go down. The blonde then holds the little one's hand and tells her to wash her hands after going out. Our hero then tells her to take it easy and not worry so much about everything. He then asks about Urium, and Ol says she's busy. The raid head got so hooked on a drama that she hasn't left her room all day. Ol then wonders if her friend Spring has woken up from her nap yet, and she comments that it's the first time she's seen her friend obsessed with something other than fighting. Suddenly, our hero gets a serious expression and tells Ol to hurry. He tells her to take Winter to the room, and not to leave until he says so. With a surprised look, our hero notices that the core in the knight's chest is strange. His distorted grandfather clock authority grabs the flow of twisted time, and the ability detects an element directing hostility against our MC. On top of that, it expresses extreme repulsion towards elements outside the timeline. A golden hourglass then appears and starts to glow brightly in front of him, and now the authority will identify and search for elements outside the timeline. Even though he can't do anything, our hero can only wait and watch the situation. He then wonders if anything has been resolved with the appearance of that strange light, and he asks the knights what they plan to do from now on. The distortion of the dimension must have broken the magic connecting them to the dragons. The knight then asks if he's just going to let them go, and he agrees. Scared, the other knights say their goodbyes and prepare to leave as quickly as possible. Our hero then says goodbye and seems relieved with how things turned out. However, one of the knights refuses to leave and says he can't abandon his mission. According to him, his mission is to protect the history of causality at all costs. Out of patience, our hero kicks the knight, sending him crashing to the floor. He then says he'll ask again and glares at him with a serious and intimidating look. With his foot on the knight, he asks him if he's really not going to leave. Even defeated, the knight insists and says he can't abandon his mission. With a blue and red aura, our MC unleashes all his power at once. He then gets closer and says he'll ask one last time before he loses his patience. And with a cold, piercing gaze, he stares at him and asks if he's really not leaving. The knight then repeats one more time that he can't, and that his mission is more important. The other knights then say he won't listen no matter what they say. He's always been a fool who can't even grasp freedom. Our hero then just nods and seems to understand the knight's situation, and he says that's what makes him a suitable guardian for his important mission. With a swift move, the knight's helmet shatters into pieces on the floor. He then asks him why he wants to stay by the green dragon's side so badly. Finally, the knight asks if he was testing them, but our hero denies everything. The knight then says his loyalty to the Green Clan remains unchanged, and he questions what he, who is weaker, can do as a guardian. Our hero then says there's a role that fits him perfectly, and he introduces him to the girls as the new janitor he hired. Wearing a pink apron, the knight appears next to our MC, looking confused. He then wonders in shock if his new role is really being a janitor. And a moment later, he's seen washing dishes in the kitchen with rubber gloves. With his hands full of soap, the knight can't seem to believe his situation. He then just sighs and seems resigned to his new fate in the house. The knight then complains and asks what being a cleaner has to do with his mission. According to him, he can't make any sense of it in his knightly head, but our hero says he already told him that one person is enough to take care of them, and he threatens him, saying that if he doesn't clean properly, he'll wipe him from existence. The knight then wonders how he ended up in this janitor situation. Finally, our hero's clone asks him if he's Askalifa's guardian. The clone then says she heard he was working as a janitor, and he confirms it. Ol then laughs and says that Mr. really knows how to socialize with people, and, with a little heart in her mouth, she takes a picture of the knight with her watch. She then compliments him and says the apron goes really well with his armor. With rosy cheeks, the knight seems to get flustered by the blonde's compliment, and, with his rubber gloves, he continues to wash the dishes very carefully. Little Yahello then says he can't hide his happy smile. Our hero then praises the phrase, and the knight thanks him, all embarrassed. He then appears in a pink shirt, and the clone says that outfit is quite expensive. She then asks if Bomb is okay, and she says it's just a simple fever. And with a smile, Bomb asks the janitor to take good care of them from now on. Ol then asks him which outfit he thinks looks prettier on little Yahello. And Bomb says she bought the clothes as soon as she felt better and asks if the little one liked them. The knight then offers to take care of all the household chores for them, and little Yahello shows off her new outfits, a teddy bear backpack, and a goth dress. With a trembling hand, our hero seems to be feeling some kind of strange pain, and with a serious look, he assesses the situation and seems very suspicious. Ol then gets startled when she realizes he noticed she was still playing. He then asks about Urium, and the blonde says she's been missing all day. The knight then tells him that he tried to clean her room, but was kicked out, and upon opening the door, he finds a full ashtray and several empty bottles. Our hero then stays silent and just observes the mess in the redhead's room. On TV, a woman yells that all of this is for the good of the nation she lives in. Our MC then peeks through the door and finds Urium watching TV, and he asks if she's been staring at that the whole time. But she denies it right away. With a snack in her mouth, she asks what he wants, and he says he came to see if she was alive. Bomb then says she was just kidding around and that she likes Yuga. The redhead then worries about Bomb's appearance, because she looks very unwell, and she's seen sitting on the floor of her room, surrounded by cans and glasses. On TV, the series she's watching goes up to the 7th season, but the story is terrible. Our hero then questions Urium why she's still watching the series if it's so bad. On top of that, he tells her to get out of the room, because they need to have a serious talk. Ol then complains to her friend and asks if she wasn't told to clean her room. Our MC then tells them to leave the living room and kitchen to the cleaner. Urium finds it ridiculous and doesn't get why she has to clean if they have a servant. With Yahello in his arms, he tells them to act like humans and that their rooms are disgusting. A redhead then tells the piece of metal to clean her room because she's going to the academy. But our hero intervenes and announces that they will now do a major house cleaning, and with little Yahello dressed up as a doll, he just confirms his decision with okay. He remembers the horrible dish Bomb made, and feels traumatized by the scene. The girls then revel and ask when he entered their rooms. With a wicked smile, he shoves something in Yul's mouth, making her scream in desperation. The three of them then sit on the sofa with the knight, and ask about the cleaning. The knight says he's already cleaned and is going to buy dinner, but our hero doesn't let it slide. Ol then clings to the knight and complains that she hates messes of any kind. Our hero's clone refuses the offered food and tells the girl to go on ahead. He's supervising the knight, who is staring at the mess in Urium's room. The knight complains that the stench in there is worse than a demon's, even without a nose. He also wonders what kind of plant that is, full of cigarettes in the ashtray. He then starts cleaning up the trash, but ends up mixing the bottles with the cans. Suddenly, the clone appears and points out his mistake, saying that's not right, and he even scolds the knight because he doesn't even know the basics of separating trash. The knight then wonders if they don't recycle in Askalifa, and feels a strange aura. The clone glares at him and asks why he's staring, and if he's counting the days. The knight then agrees, and thinks that anyone would believe he's the real one. At that moment, the real Subai arrives and asks what the two of them are doing there. The clone then says he was just giving advice because the cleaner is useless. But our hero tells him to stop giving orders and help with cleaning the room. Meanwhile, the other girls are enjoying their day, working out and shopping. Finally, the clone and the knight begin the heavy duty cleaning of the house under our hero's watch. Subai's clone reports that the job is done, and our hero congratulates him. Our boy then hands him a laptop and says that's his next mission, and on the screen, a world map appears with the exact location in Moscow, Russia. The clone understands immediately and says he'll prepare for the new task right away. Subai then tells him to finish his work at the police station this week, so he can travel. The young man was about to leave when he mentioned that Bomb was back, but our hero cuts him off. Meanwhile, in the living room, Ol insists the cleaner eat, and Urium teases her. A moment later, Bomb arrives with the groceries and explains that the family has grown a lot. He explains that in Russia, an organization is researching transcendental demons. With a smile, Bomb happily announces that she's home and back to everyone. At the dinner table, everyone praises the soup that tastes just like the one from Khalifa. The whole meal glows purple, and Bomb encourages everyone to eat as much as they want. Suddenly, Subai feels something strange, and the knight asks if something happened. The clone's mission is to find and capture Prototype X, a powerful demon, and that's why he tells the clone to switch clothes with him. Right that instant, the scene takes us to an abandoned industrial zone near Lair Academy. There, Subai's clone has left a demon all beat up on the ground, cursing at him. The injured young man says he doesn't know the details, but he seems to be lying through his teeth. All around, we see several other bodies scattered on the floor after the fight. With that, the clone grabs Professor Yin by the hair and glares at him angrily. He also reveals that he knows the professor is a demon from the organization Invisibility. Our hero then questions him about his plans, but the man can only groan in pain. Meanwhile, the clone wonders if this is what the real Subai called him for, and to find out the truth, he activates his ability, Scales of Judgment. Yin then reveals that in 3 months, if the plan succeeds, he will gain a seat. The professor then tries to threaten him, saying he won't get away with this, and he even says the young man would regret it if he knew who was backing him. However, our boy says he knows very well and finishes him off without any mercy. It's then explained that the strongest demons hold the rank of Calamity, and the seats are the 4 demons chosen to lead the organization. With his hourglass of time, our hero analyzes the situation with the demon professor, and his ability informs him that the current target is the dangerous demon named Yin. Meanwhile, in a beautiful flower garden with a fountain, the scene prepares for the worst. Back at the warehouse, the professor begs for his life, and says he can get more information. Our MC just stares at him in silence and seems to not believe a word. The demon then tries to appeal to his emotions and says he has a sick mother waiting at home. However, our hero says he already told him that lies don't work on him, and even if it were true, the final outcome of that fight wouldn't change at all. Our boy then finds it strange, because Yin never reached the seat in the other cycles, and he discovers that a being from outside the timeline interfered with his regression. With a blast of annihilation, the entire building goes up in smoke all at once. Yin is now the best version of himself, with the qualities of all cycles combined. And with a single, precise strike, our MC finishes off the professor without a second thought. His authority then reads the malice coming from outside and searches for abnormal beings. And finally, he understands that everything connected to him can be tampered with at any moment. With a focused gaze, our hero thinks about how cute the little baby is. He watches Bomb and other girls playing with Yahello in the park. Bomb even jokes that Yahello is his daughter, and she's basically the mother. 2 young women then approach and compliment the little one's hair and name. Later, Bomb sits with our hero and asks where he's been all day. The girls then turn around and are surprised to see our MC there. He asks what Bomb was up to, and she says she was sick and wanted to see Yahello. On top of that, school starts tomorrow, and they won't have as much time together anymore. Our hero then thinks that Yin's plan must be huge and connected to Lair, and he remembers the professor inviting Urium to lead the year-in ceremony. Bomb then asks if they don't look like a family, but he seems lost in thought. He suspects that the year-end An event is part of the demon's plan. The young women then ask for the baby's name, and Bond replies that it's Yu-Gi-Oh. With a smile, Bond looks at our hero, who remains serious and thoughtful. Finally, he looks at the girls and asks what they want with the child. Bond then lets out a little laugh at our MC's serious face, but our hero keeps the same straight face, not understanding. She then says it was a joke, and he tells her to stop talking nonsense and go home. After that, he picks up Yahello and asks if the little one had fun on their outing, and, with a smile, Bond just watches the two of them with a happy look on her face. Meanwhile, Yahello appears with a piece of toast in her mouth and an air of mystery. On the park bench, Bond comments that this makes her feel like a family. At school, Yahello asks her friend what classes she's taking this year. The blonde then eats her toast and celebrates that she's finally going to school, and little Yahello just watches everything with her usual cute face. Yahello is super excited because she'll finally get to study like a normal girl. Bond then finds it strange and asks why her friend has toast in her mouth. In Ask Khalifa, if a girl who's running late bumps into someone with toast in her mouth, and with that idea in mind, the girls walk towards the entrance of Lair Academy. That person becomes her destined partner, and Yahello thinks the idea is awesome. Yahello walks distractedly, dreaming of her partner, but ends up bumping into Yuriam. The redhead then teases her, asking if she's her destiny, but the blonde complains that she's a girl. Yuriam doesn't care and eats her friend's toast, saying girls kiss in dramas. Then she asks about our hero, and Bond explains that he went to observe the classes. With a sly smile, Yuriam suggests he might be with another woman, and Bond gets startled. The green-haired girl denies everything, and Yahello notices she's sweating and looks sick. Suddenly, the blonde's eyes widen, as if she's just realized something important. A moment later, they see a crowd of people who aren't students and find out they're reporters. They're there to film the notable freshman, and Bond tries to escape the commotion. Meanwhile, some students look at the girls, and one of them recognizes Yuriam right away. And he remembers she was the girl who destroyed Sophia and made that controversial statement. The redhead then realizes she's been recognized and gets a sour look on her face. In an instant, a crowd of reporters surrounds Yuriam and asks for an interview. They insist, and Yahello is startled by the number of people around them. In a rage, the redhead shows her sharp teeth and looks ready to explode at everyone. Yuriam then yells for everyone to shut up and glares at them angrily. She then says her last answer wasn't enough, and that she'll deal with them one by one. With a wicked smile and a middle finger, she calls them vultures and challenges them. Meanwhile, at home, little Yahello just watches everything with a bored expression. The knight then finds her sitting on the floor near the door, and looks thoughtful. He approaches and comments that things have gotten a bit awkward between them. In another moment, Subai's clone had informed him that the kids were going to school, and he left him in charge of taking care of little Yahello while he's away. The knight then thinks that taking care of a child is much harder than cleaning, and he tries to talk to the little one, who is sitting on the floor without saying anything. He then says everyone will be back late and suggests she make herself at home. Yahello then comes closer and stares at him in silence, making the knight feel awkward. The mood gets heavy, and he starts to sweat, feeling the pressure of the little one's stare. Not knowing what to do, the knight decides to just go back to cleaning the entire house. And in another room, he sees the toys scattered on the floor and seems to get an idea. The knight then tries to approach Yahello, who is sitting on the floor. With a book in hand, he invites her to read a story with him. He then kneels on the floor and shows the book to the little one with a smile. Yahello then comes closer and seems very interested in the idea of reading. The knight then gets happy and says he'll read the story from the book to her, and the title is "Or Daddy is a Fairy Lord," and the cover is very childish. The story begins in a forest a long time ago, in a little house. But the knight already imagines a forest full of demons and creatures. And in the book, a little girl named Dalsuni lived with her father in a house. With his vivid imagination, he already sees them as warriors and her mother is gone. The story then says that the father told stories to help Dalsuni sleep. But the knight already thinks the stories were about the Great War and his battles, and he concludes that little Dalsuni must have been a war maniac. The story then says the father disappeared, and the knight already thinks he went to find another woman, and he imagines a war scene where the father takes a prisoner as his wife. In his mind, the knight thinks Dalsuni would be happy with a new mother. He then continues his narration, but little Giles glares at him angrily. The little girl seems to really dislike the story he's telling. The knight asks if she didn't like it, but the little one points to a corner. With her finger, she indicates a specific place for the knight to go without saying a word. The little one then guides him away, and he follows her, not understanding the situation. A moment later, she lies on the floor and starts drawing, looking happy and calm. Meanwhile, at school, Bomb thinks about our hero and a blonde girl. Suddenly, a black car pulls up in front of Lair Academy, drawing attention. And out of it steps a girl with elegant shoes and an air of superiority. Two students watch her and comment on how beautiful and important she seems. The girl complains that she hates training with swords because it makes her sweat and messes up her makeup. She then sees the reporters and thinks they're there because of her fame, and she is Gong Ju, he, and Harris of a renowned family of swordsmen. Ju, he then tells her secretary Kim to take care of the reporters so she can pass. Ju, he then asks who they are photographing and tries to walk through them. With an awkward smile, she realizes the cameras aren't focused on her. Everyone is watching Yuriam, who is sitting on top of a boy. Ol asks why the guy became her chair, and she says he wanted to. The boy then says he's a fan of hers, but the redhead thinks he's full of it. Yuriam then starts the interview, and a reporter from Taiwan introduces himself. The redhead then organizes the mess and says, if they don't follow the order, she's leaving. Suddenly, a chubby reporter named Park Kang, who tries to cut in line. Yuriam sends him to the back of the line, and the reporter complains he didn't even ask anything. Another reporter asks how she feels being the center of attention, and she cusses. Another one asks about a fan club, and she understands why the boy said he was a fan. The redhead then gets annoyed and asks why they ask such stupid questions, and she complains about the smell of sweat and tells the next reporter to just ask the question. The chubby reporter then approaches and seems to have a very dubious intention, and he questions her about the meaning of the words she shouted in the interview. With a sly smile, Yuriam provokes him and asks if he wants to go out with her. The reporter gets flustered, but the redhead glares at him with hatred and asks why he insists. The man then says she's young and doesn't understand how their profession works. And he threatens her, saying that if she answers well, he'll write a good article about her. Yuriam then gets annoyed and tells him to get away from her before she loses her patience. The reporter then smiles and says that's how you get ratings, by being aggressive, and he threatens her again, saying he'll write the article however he wants. And he even suggests a headline where she asks for a relationship with a reporter. The redhead then explodes in anger and threatens to put an end to him before he writes it. However, our hero appears and stops her punch before it hits the reporter. Ol then calls him Mr. and says he arrived at a great time. Our MC then asks why she's causing trouble again. Yuriam then gets annoyed and says it's the reporter's fault for provoking her. Out of patience, our hero throws her over his shoulder and carries her away, and he ends the interview right there while the redhead struggles and screams in anger. With an intimidating look, he asks the reporter not to write about the incident. He and her secretary watch the scene, and she suggests finding out which family they belong to. Meanwhile, Yuriam just stays silent and seems quite scared. The secretary then comments on the size of Guel's chest, and he agrees. A man then introduces himself as Professor Javier Karma, the swordsmanship instructor, and with Yuriam on his shoulder, our hero tells Ol to hurry up so they're not late. With a blue aura, he unleashes his power, and the reporter is terrified by the scene. In the classroom, our MC questions why the redhead is there with him. The reporter then gets scared and ends up exploding from sheer fear of our hero. Our boy then reminds Yuriam that she tried to hit a reporter earlier. Meanwhile, in the classroom, Professor Javier begins his lesson for the new students. He then starts talking about the history of fencing, but the redhead interrupts him, and she says she's not causing trouble and has been behaving very well lately. Our hero is then surprised and says he thought she would get bored and run away, but she says she'll try her best to defeat that armor-clad brute one day. Yuriam then defends herself, saying the reporter was really annoying her. With a sly smile, she gets closer and asks if he's not embarrassed. Our hero then just stays silent with his usual serious expression. The redhead then huffs and makes a bored face at his lack of reaction. She then complains that studying is boring, but says he's even more tedious. And she calls him a kidnapper and says he should be more interesting. In the beginning, he didn't seem normal, and she thought she'd have more exciting days. The redhead then says she expected days full of excitement, but was disappointed. Our hero then says she's had more than enough stimulation with the commotion at school. But Urium complains that she doesn't want petty squabbles, but something more thrilling. Suddenly, Professor Javier notices the girl's restlessness and smiles. According to him, there's a good method to calm her down right away, and he tells Urium to stay after class with her guardian for a talk. The scene then takes us to a kind of prison with cells and bars everywhere, and inside, the redhead is training with a wooden sword, looking very bored. In a rage, Urium complains that she's in detention, cleaning the swords. She says she'd rather get beaten than have to clean that place, and she asks why they don't just call the janitor to do the dirty work. He then says the knight likes to clean, but she thinks little Yahello is useless. Our hero then asks her if she studied when she was a kid, but he didn't have the time. With a smile, the redhead teases him and calls him a problem child for not studying properly. However, he explains that it was wartime back then, and he was busy trying to survive. The girl gets embarrassed but soon accuses him of messing with her again. With a lollipop in her mouth, the redhead just glares at him with a not so friendly look. Our MC then asks her if she enjoys life, but she says no. And she says that if she were as strong as him, she wouldn't live such a boring and dull life. She then teases him and asks if he's in that phase where everything feels meaningless. But he says life goes on and tells her to stop chattering and finish cleaning. The scene then takes us to their house at night with a beautiful starry sky, and in the living room, Bomb is playing with Yahello while the knight and Urium watch. Urium then appears, trying to solve a Rubik's Cube without success. Meanwhile, the knight is pacing back and forth, which is getting on her nerves, and she yells at him, telling him to stop bothering her because she can't focus. Bomb then calls the knight useless and asks the redhead if she's okay. She then says she doesn't feel any excitement, and that maybe it's from a lack of fighting. Suddenly Yahello calls Bomb Spring, leaving her in shock at the revelation. Bomb can't believe the little one called her that and gets startled. The redhead then gets annoyed and says she's going to start calling her you again, and Bomb gets worried. With a serious look, Urium just clenches her fist and seems thoughtful. She then asks Bomb why she lies, leaving her speechless. Bomb and Yahello then just stare at her in silence, not understanding the question. She then says that Urium has finally hit puberty, and the redhead gets annoyed, and she reveals that she asked our hero why he lives and what brings him joy. Urium then shares that he said life goes on and he can't give up, and she concludes that since he feels no joy, there's no reason to keep living. Bomb then explains that Yahello is happy just from eating something tasty, and little Yahello has fun just by playing with her teddy bear. With a thoughtful look, Bomb says that Mr. must have something he likes too. Urium then says her friend is just like our hero, leaving her confused. According to the redhead, both of them are hard to read and insanely boring. She then asks if Bomb has anything she enjoys in life, leaving her to think. The green-haired girl then remembers something and says there is one thing, and she reveals that our hero gets embarrassed easily, and Urium can't believe it. With a smile, Bomb says she didn't believe it either but has since changed her mind. And she remembers a moment when the two of them were sitting together in the park. The girl then gets closer and says he has surprisingly cute moments. Urium then gets spooked by her friend's creepy smile and yells at her, and she accuses her of doing weird things with him behind her back. Suddenly, Yahello appears and says the community is talking a lot about Urium, and she reveals they even created a fan caf for her friend, leaving her shocked. Urium then asks what a fan cafe is while squeezing her friend tightly. Yahello is speechless and doesn't know what to say to the two girls. Embarrassed, she says it's nothing, and tells them to continue what they were doing. The redhead then gets annoyed and asks what the blonde is imagining in her head. The scene then takes us to the beautiful houses of the Lair dorms at night, and in his room, our hero appears changing, his toned abs on display. Suddenly, his bedroom door slowly opens, and someone peeks in, and it's Bomb, who calls him Mr. and seems to want to talk to the guy. With a smile, she says she has something to ask our main character, and she catches him off guard while he's still getting dressed in his room. Bomb then gets startled and apologizes for not knocking on the door first. Embarrassed, she gets all blushy and doesn't know what to say to our hero. With a smile, she invites him to go on an outing with her today. According to the girl, he's never gone out with her, not even once since they met. and she complains that he's only been going out with Urium and Jael lately. With a cold look, our hero turns down Bomb's invitation, leaving her speechless. Meanwhile, Urium and Guy all comment on Bomb's mother and her beauty. The green-haired girl then questions why he doesn't go out with her too. Yul gets excited and thinks it's a date, but Urium says it's as a guardian. With her mouth full, the blonde looks thoughtful and seems to be analyzing the situation. Bomb then asks if she's one of the 97 abandoned men from a story. Gae all says she understands the situation, but that his favoritism is really bad, and she hugs Bomb and says, Mr. is mean for leaving her friend out. Urium then tells him to go out with her at least once, and promises to behave. Our hero then reflects and realizes he can't monitor the girls forever. Urium loves a good fight and Gao only cares about eating chicken. Finally, he agrees to go out with Bomb, making her super happy with his decision. The next day, Urium asks why she isn't going to school, and she answers she feels like a caught fish that he no longer cares about after catching it. And she tells a story about her mother, who met hundreds of men but only adored 2 or 3. The scene then takes us to a large, modern building at Lair Academy. Inside, several students are in a social etiquette class with their guardians. And some students comment that she's the older sister of the famous Urium. On top of that, they mention her name as Bomb and that she's very beautiful. However, they think the Yu family name is low status and have never heard of it. The teacher then ends the theory lesson and announces the social dance practice. The students get embarrassed, but she says it's important to know how to dance. They'll need to dance at prestigious events, representing their families, and she says it would be more embarrassing not to know anything and just mumble in a corner. With that, she tells all the cadets to pair up to start the practice, and she even encourages the shy ones to ask the cadets they like the most. 2 students then wonder why Bomb hasn't found a partner yet. They thought boys would be lining up to dance with a girl like her. But one of them says she's hard to approach and that he shouldn't touch her. The teacher then notices that only Bomb doesn't have a partner, and the girl jokes about it. With a nervous look, our hero clutches his pants and seems uncomfortable. And he says he doesn't know how to dance, but Bomb suggests the teacher join them. The teacher then gets excited and says Bomb is very beautiful and accepts the invitation. Bomb then runs to the teacher and thanks her for the opportunity to dance. Our hero then just watches the scene in silence and seems relieved. But Bomb looks at him with a sad little face and asks if he's going to leave her alone. He then approaches, and the 2 stand face to face, ready to dance. Bomb then seems surprised by our MC's move and is left speechless. With a smile, she takes his hand and tells him not to worry about a thing, and she asks the teacher if it's okay for her guardian to be her partner. With a smile, Bomb extends her hand and invites him to dance with her in class. She then says that emotions don't connect just by touching hands, and he agrees. The teacher then starts the class and teaches the basic dance steps to the students. Bomb then asks if he's embarrassed to touch her, but he denies it right away, and she warns him not to even think about not dancing properly, as it could affect her grade. With a smile, Bomb asks if they can start dancing together. She then hugs him and asks why his hands are sweating so much. Our hero gets all nervous, and Bomb notices he's sweating in other places too, and she remembers the scene where she caught him changing in his room earlier. Suddenly, our MC accidentally steps on her foot, making her stumble, and the 2 end up falling to the ground together in a very awkward position. Bomb then warns him that his nose is bleeding, which makes him very concerned. The scene then takes us to a diner just outside Lair Academy, and Bomb is seen drinking a juice and seems to be having a lot of fun. Our hero asks if she needs to go to the hospital, but she says she's fine. And he finds it strange because he didn't hit anything to get a nosebleed. With a smile, she teases him, and the 2 start dancing again, very lively. Bomb then compliments him, saying she was surprised because he dances better than she thought. With a blushing look, she stares at him, and the 2 seem to be having a great time. Finally, she asks where he learned to dance, but he doesn't answer. With a focused look, our hero just stays silent and seems thoughtful. And the scene takes us to Moscow, Russia, on a beautiful full moon night. In a lab, a red light flashes, and an alarm suddenly goes off. Meanwhile, our hero remembers a woman teaching him how to dance. Back in the present, he walks alone and seems to be reflecting on something. Bomb then asks if he has any plans after school, but he says no, and he reveals that he actually never learned how to dance. Surprising Bomb, in an ice castle, we see the research center of the invisibility organization. With a thoughtful look, Bong just watches our hero in silence. A man then presses an emergency button and says they can't stop him. In his flashback, the woman compliments him and says he's improving every day. A vampire then runs for the exit and says to contact headquarters immediately. With a smile, Bong invites him to do something fun together. The vampire then runs down a hallway filled with bodies and destruction everywhere, and she wonders where that monster came from and cusses in anger. Suddenly, Subai's clone appears and asks where the vampire is going in such a hurry. The woman then gets scared and asks what he wants, but he doesn't answer. With his blue eyes glowing, he asks where the Type X demon is. The vampire then refuses to answer and says she'd rather lose her life than betray the organization. With a dark aura, he envelopes her and says he's noticed something while hunting demons, and he explains that when it hurts a lot, a human appearance suddenly emerges. With a wicked smile, he threatens her and asks if she wants to dance alone in the moonlight. With his dark power, he finishes her off, leaving her lifeless on the ground. A moment later, the clone starts communicating with the real Subai, and he discovers that Type X has already been sent to the invisibility headquarters. With a thoughtful look, the clone analyzes the situation and comes up with a plan. He then asks if the head researcher he dealt with was named Vera, and he tells the clone to disguise himself as Vera and infiltrate the organization's headquarters. With that, the clone accepts the mission, and the two switch places again on the spot. Finally, our hero focuses and prepares for what's to come. And it's explained that the longer Type X survives, the more dangerous it becomes. Our hero then gets a surprised look on his face and seems to have understood something. And with his authority, he discovers that Type X's identity has changed again. Suddenly, Bomb calls him and asks him to come to her room for a second. He then approaches, and she pulls him inside with haste and curiosity. With a determined look, our MC says nothing changes, and he will protect her life. Bomb then surprises him and says she thought about buying a new bikini, and she invites him to come in, teasing him that he can't see well from far away. With a suspicious look, she asks if he's having strange thoughts. And with his authority, our hero reads the malice coming from the horizon of Providence. Bomb then says she was just having fun, but he doesn't seem to like the joke. Prototype X is a demonic human that unites countless minds into one, and she appears in a black swimsuit and asks if it looks good on her. At the store, she teases him and asks if he didn't really want to take a little peek, and our hero remembers that in other regressions, he always prioritized taking out Type X. The scene then takes us to a toy store with a cute pink sign. Our hero then tells Bomb to stop messing around and go home already. But she reveals she came there to buy presents for the kids, leaving him surprised, and she says she'll look for gifts for Goal and Urium, and he'll get one for Jael. Our MC then asks what she's going to buy for the other girls. Bomb then walks away, and our hero watches her in silence, looking thoughtful. Meanwhile, in the toy store, a saleswoman stares at him with a bored look. But soon, she perks up and asks if the gift is for his daughter. And our hero explains that he's buying a new teddy bear for Jael. Bomb then says that Urium wants something she saw in a movie recently. With a worried look, Bomb wonders if our hero will be okay on his own. She thinks he doesn't know anything about baby toys and looks lost. The saleswoman then sizes him up and, with a wicked smile, marks him as her new target. With a smile, she asks for the child's age, and he replies that she's 4 years old, and she analyzes him and wonders if he's a model or a soldier based on his appearance. The saleswoman then offers a doctor's kit with a 10% discount, and he accepts. With a surprised look, she can't believe he accepted the offer so easily. She then asks if he's the uncle and says the child will love the gift, and the saleswoman suggests a toy kit instead of dolls for her age. Our hero then imagines little Guile dressed as a nurse and likes the idea. He then agrees to pay with a card, and the saleswoman gets super excited. With a wicked smile, she celebrates that she hit the jackpot with this customer. Our MC then asks if she wants to take a look at the toys, but the saleswoman says he doesn't have much sense for picking out gifts. Suddenly, Bomb appears and grabs his arm, leaving the saleswoman shocked. And the store lady shamelessly asks if he has a girlfriend. With a smile, she examines him and says he can bond with the child this way. In the end, he ends up buying a pile of gifts for the girls at home, and the saleswoman is surprised to see he has a black card just for VIPs. With a smitten look, she finds him charming and thinks about trying her luck with him. The saleswoman then wonders if Bomb is our MC's girlfriend, and she concludes that the girl must be his younger sister based on her appearance. Our hero then picks up the teddy bear and says maybe this is better. With an awkward smile, Bomb just agrees and seems a bit uncomfortable. Back home, the scene takes us to the beautiful dorm mansion at night. Bomb then questions why he bought all the wrong things for Yahello, and with the teddy bear in her arms, she asks if the purchase has the VIP discount. Yahello then asks what Urium got, and the redhead is at a loss for words. With a smile, Bomb says that Yahello doesn't like those toy kits, and our hero asks if he can buy all the items in the store for them. The saleswoman is then speechless and can't believe he doesn't like the kits. Bomb then explains that the teddy bear is similar to the original and won't confuse her, and Yahello thanks him for the gifts and says she loves him very much for it. The three girls are then amazed by the number of gifts they received, and Yahello's new teddy bear glows and seems to be the perfect gift for her. The knight then peeks through the door and sees the gift scene in the living room. Our hero then says yes, and seems ready for whatever comes next. Suddenly, Yahello appears in handcuffs and screams in desperation. Little Yahello then thanks him for the teddy bear and hugs it tightly. Bomb then asks what our MC bought for her as a gift, and she hands him a box and says that gift is for our hero. Bomb then says she'll show him later, and the scene reveals a set of black lingerie. And she explains that she bought him a new tie, because he always wears the same one. The scene then jumps forward a few weeks, and we see the big city of Lair. Our hero then says that Bomb should have bought something for herself too. Meanwhile, Urium appears with an adult toy and a wicked smile, and she calls Yahello over to try out the handcuffs and whip with her. In another room, the knight asks if our MC called for him. Bomb then says she'll buy him a suit when she has her own money. And our hero announces he'll be gone for 3 days and leaves the knight in charge of Yahello. And our hero reveals that Urium will be going with him on this important mission. In a large hall, several students gather around a purple portal. And one of them comments that the battle simulation is finally about to begin, and they are all sucked into a giant and powerful purple portal. The simulation is a 3-day survival combat in a virtual dungeon. There, the students operate in teams of 3 and receive orders from their chaperone, and this role is called an operator, inspired by superhuman groups. Our hero then takes on the role of operator and prepares for the simulation. With a smile, Urium mocks the other students, saying they've never fought before. But our MC warns her that she doesn't have the luxury of relaxing here, and he explains that it's not a solo raid, and she needs to form a team of 3. The redhead then looks thoughtful, and doesn't seem to like the idea of a team much. Suddenly, a couple approaches and invites her to join their team. Urium then tells them to get lost, but our hero asks for their names. The boy then introduces himself as Hizaki Sojiro, and seems very excited about the mission. In a rage, Urium yells at both of them and tells them to get lost. The purple-haired girl then introduces herself as Kim Jae-in and stays silent. She then glares at Urium and asks if she has nothing to say to them. Hizaki then thanks her for the opportunity, and Urium threatens them again. With an awkward smile, the boy apologizes and seems quite scared, and he promises they'll work hard not to get in her way. During the mission, a blonde guy then mocks them and says adults don't care about orphans. Our hero then accepts the duo, and Urium complains that he didn't ask for her opinion. The blonde then messes with Ji-in and tells her to get the bangs out of her face. And he threatens her, saying he warned her he'd finish her if he saw her again. Our MC then tells the redhead to find another team if she doesn't like them. The blonde then approaches and provokes her again, but she doesn't seem to care. Suddenly, Urium attacks him, leaving him surprised by her strength and speed. And with a single, precise strike, she throws him to the ground, leaving him speechless. With a wicked smile, he mocks the orphan, and Urium asks what an orphan is. The blonde then explains that an orphan is a student without a chaperone here at the academy. Urium then gets it, and complains about having to team up with 2 beggars. Suddenly, another guy approaches and invites her to join his team. Hizaki and Ji-in are shocked and don't understand the guy's sudden proposal. The blonde then threatens him and asks if he wants to lose his life for meddling, and he calls them unsupported trash and nobodies, leaving the 2 speechless. He remembers an elder warning him to be careful with the Yu family. With a serious look, Urium just glares at him and tells him to answer quickly. With a wicked smile, he thinks that getting close to her might be a good idea, and he thinks she has similar tendencies. At that he can handle her easily. The redhead then threatens him and says, if she sees him again, he'll regret it. The blonde then approaches her and mocks her for teaming up with two idiots. And with a solid punch, she hits him square in the face with all her strength. With a look of pure hatred, she asks who gave him permission to touch her. And the guy is shocked by her attitude and calls her crazy without thinking. In a rage, Urium just glares at the duo in silence and seems furious. A man then calls everyone's attention to the purple portal in the middle of the hall, and he introduces himself as Professor Kwon-gitai and starts explaining the rules. Everyone will be divided into 50 teams and will start in different places, and everything will be converted into points and broadcast in real time for everyone. On top of that, if a student loses their life, they only respawn after 3 hours. The professor then reveals that the virtual dungeon's name is the Ant's Nest, and with a serious look, the students prepare for the challenge ahead. Upon arriving at the dungeon, our hero comments that it's not bad for a virtual place. Urium then gets excited and tells them to go all out against the others. But the redhead says they just have to run around and they'll find the other teams. Jai and then says they aren't as fast or energetic as Urium. And she warns her that if they run off alone, they could be ambushed from behind. With a smile, Urium says the plan is for her to go ahead and for them to provide cover. Jai and then gets annoyed and says this is a team battle, not a solo one. Hizaki then tries to calm the two down, but the fight seems far from over. Our hero then asks if they have a target number in mind to attack. Urium is confused and doesn't understand our MC's question. And he explains that he wants to know which team they want to attack from behind first. Elsewhere, the blonde complains that his nose still hurts from the punch. Ji-in says it won't be easy because the teams won't expose their weak points. And the blonde wonders if Urium will really destroy him if she finds him. His friends then tease him, saying that's what he gets for messing with Urium. With a wicked smile, the redhead tells them to finish off everyone they see, and she challenges Jai-in to try her luck and see what happens to her. One of the blonde's friends asks if he really wanted to replace her. The blonde then swears he'll get revenge on Urium if he finds her in the dungeon. Suddenly, he takes a hard hit, and his health drops to 17%, and Urium appears and attacks him with her sword, with a look of pure hatred. With a single blow, she defeats the blonde and his friends all at once. The guy is then prepared to fight back and aim their weapons at Urium. With a wicked smile, the redhead says they're getting everything wrong here. The operator then despairs and wonders when she got so close to them. And Urium calls them little puppies and says this is a one-sided hunt.